I spent the entire day yesterday reading previews and watching videos, and I learned a great deal about the gameplay of Final Fantasy XVI. There are many great videos out there, and I'm sure you've seen them all just as I have. Or maybe you haven't. And if not, I highly recommend Havian's video, as it is a wonderful breakdown, and I'll put that link in the description for you. But here's some highlighted takeaways. Equip up to 3 icons with just 2 abilities each. Torgal uses animal instincts that will help point you in the right direction if you get lost. Loot is collected automatically after dropping. There's a crafting material based on rarity. Clive can equip a weapon, belt, vambrace, and 3 accessories. One interesting attribute is the stagger attribute, which is how efficiently Clive can break the enemy's will. That is the stagger bar, and it's called will in this game. I love how Daryl of the Final Fantasy Union associates this with the theme and tone of the game. It's worth noting that the demo was specially curated for the sake of this preview event and will likely differ from the actual game, so it's okay to assume that the demo could have been chopped down a little bit in the interest of time, potentially cutting out a few smaller encounters and areas of the castle. Also, demos such as this are pulled from the ongoing development and worked on somewhat separately, meaning that the development progressed while the demo was being worked on. For example, the final game will have a performance mode that was not offered in the demo. And we see some flaws that I think will be corrected by launch, such as skill up mentioning the poor quality of motion blur. Allow me to quote the combat director of Final Fantasy XVI, Ryota Suzuki. Keep in mind, this is the same talented guy that brought us the brilliant Devil May Cry 5 and Dragon's Dogma combat systems. And I quote, "I think what I have created with Final Fantasy XVI is the greatest action game that I have ever made." There is so much power behind that statement. Devil May Cry 5 won Best Action Game at the Game Awards in 2019 and is considered by many to be one of the best games in the genre. And it seems that those who got their hands on Final Fantasy XVI agree with Suzuki-san. So here's a recap of some of the things that I learned from several gaming outlets about the battle system and how the game plays. Steve Watts from GameSpot writes, quote, "The game that most came to mind when I played though was another action franchise, God of War. That's because the melee battles are punctuated by Eikon battles, uniquely built action set pieces that feel markedly different than the standard battles and are particularly exciting." End quote. When I first saw Final Fantasy XVI and the Eikon versus Eikon battles, I immediately thought of God of War 3 and its insane scale. I long for that type of game again. In fact, I replay God of War 3 a lot because it is still unmatched in terms of scale by many games. I mean, like, yeah, the recent God of War games are phenomenal, but still that sense of scale from God of War 3, man. Then I saw that scene at the end of one of the Final Fantasy XVI trailers of Ifrit leaping towards an unknown icon, surpassing the heights of a mountain. So this comparison to God of War excites me tremendously. It's difficult to overlook the influences too. In Final Fantasy XVI, you can swap icon sets like Kratos swaps weapon sets. There's a cooldown on certain abilities associated with the icon sets, urging the player to constantly cycle them. Clive will sometimes have a large party, but those allies will be AI controlled, except, get this, a companion that can be issued quick commands, but instead of being bound to the triangle button, these commands are activated by left on the D-pad. And Clive's companion isn't a boy, it's a girl boy. There's even an option to click both thumbsticks and to activate Clive's rage, Limit Break. We are talking about the love child of two of the best action games of all time. Both of these parents have a heritage of greatness, adopted by House Final Fantasy, raised by royalty, and is thriving, you see, because as Final Fantasy XVI grew up in this great house, Uncle Final Fantasy V took it under its wing and showed it the wonders of the legendary job system. Rina Asami of Game Watch's interview with Final Fantasy XVI director Hiroshi Takai, translated by Turquoise Hammer, where he says that initially the devs considered a job system. For instance, switching to Paladin would have automatically equipped certain icons. Also, Clive can wield different swords, but they're all one-handed, while the focus will be on icon abilities. For those who found it disappointing that there wasn't much variety as every character seems to be sword wielders, I think you can find enjoyment in the varied icon abilities. Think of each one as a different job that you can swap between rapidly in real time. Titan is like a paladin job class that provides Clive with a shield and powerful yet slower melee attacks. Garuda acts as Clive's ninja job class, all about fast movement DPS, while the hits are going to be weaker. Maybe think of Phoenix as sort of the mage job class, where you can cast fireballs at a distance and area of effect spells. That's just a quick assessment of what I've seen so far, but you get the idea. And if you're not too happy about the no control over the party members thing, think of Clive as the singular host of multiple playable characters. Each icon has many unique abilities that you can unlock with AP, strengthen them, and very similar to Final Fantasy V, mastering an ability on one icon allows you to equip it to another. Oh, and these ability points can be refunded and moved around to other abilities. So feel free to experiment and find the perfect set of abilities for you. Now, one thing that was talked about in nearly every article, every interview, every video is the accessibility rings to help players not yet comfortable with action games. So let me run through the entirety of what I've learned. We got the Ring of Timely Focus, temporarily slows time before an incoming attack, allowing you more time to react. The Ring of Timely Assistance removes the need for you to give Torgal battle commands manually. The Ring of Timely Strikes, execute deadly combos by pressing X. The Ring of Timely Evasion, automatically dodge most incoming attacks. The Ring of Timely Healing, automatically use potions when HP drops below a certain threshold. Mike Minotti of Venture Beat raises the question, so why not use them? Well, aside from the obvious answer, some players will just want to challenge themselves, they do take up accessory slots. So if you have an amulet or a ring that gives you a boost in attack power or defense, you'll need to make space for it and sacrifice one of these helper items. Also, the game has a feature that lets you retry missions and attempt to get high scores. You'll get more points if you don't use the special accessories. This is the part of the part of the interviews and information where I just... The skill ceiling is even higher in the third setting that you'll get to pick once you finish the game, aptly named Final Fantasy. This was previously referred to as Transcendence Mode. It will provide players with an extra challenge should they be up for it. Hiroshi Takai, that's the director of Final Fantasy XVI, tells Sal Romano of Gamatsu that Final Fantasy Mode is not only more difficult, but also changes the enemy placement and the enemies that you'll fight, so it's a completely different experience. It isn't just a harder version, it's a completely different type of experience. I mentioned that Phoenix's AoE spells from what I saw in the demo. Well, AoE attacks from the enemies are present as well, reminiscent of Final Fantasy XIV and even Final Fantasy VII Remake's Crab Warden battle. I love this mechanic, and I wonder if this Final Fantasy mode will add more AoE attacks to keep players on high alert. I have a feeling this hard mode will be extremely intense, but that's exactly what I'm looking for, baby. I'm glad they are changing up the experience too, just as Final Fantasy VII Remake did with its hard mode. Now, Turquoise Hammer on Twitter translated this wonderful interview by Rina Asami of Game Watch. So please go check that out. Again, all of these links will be in the description for you to go read personally, but I've kind of highlighted some of them, of the key aspects that I think were very exciting. Suzuki didn't just direct the battles, he put a lot of effort into planning the whole combat system. The challenge was to create a weighty experience with freedom and strategy that was neither too hard for casual action gamers nor monotonous for veterans. Now, industry all-stars were recruited to make Eikon battles, including devs of Kingdom Hearts and other companies. Yoshida mentioned to Gamatsu that the Eikon battles themselves are like minigames. He mentions a few examples, but I don't know if they ended up in the final game or if they're just examples or whatever, but he did say that why not have a driving game in our RPG? What if zero gravity? You know, I love that this approach was taken. This is going to keep things super fresh and exciting and have the player anticipating the next Eikon showdown. Also, this is a nod to classic Final Fantasy if you think about it, as Final Fantasy VII had snowboarding, a real-time strategy game, a submarine battle, you know, racing. Alright, time for rapid-fire highlights from various sources. QuickTime event button prompts keep the player engaged during battle cutscenes. Again, think God of War, but, you know, with these QuickTime events, maybe the earlier God of Wars, like God of War 1, 2, and 3. The battle director, Ryota Suzuki, spent an obsessive amount of time getting Clive's battle mechanics just right. So it's good to know that this level of care was spent on making the combat not only stylish and varied, but good on the sticks. Equipment can be upgraded. There is a special mode, a battle mode, in which you are locked to a certain ability of a single icon, and you must clear a bunch of different content in that to earn special items. Be sure to watch our other videos covering all of the news that came out of the preview event. I'm going to be talking about the story next, and audio, and maybe addressing some concerns. I suggest equipping a subscription, maybe the bell of timely notifications. Thank you so much for watching. Take care now. Bye-bye then.